response video to Tranquil. Yeah, he makes some little snarky video, you know. Put my name in, of course. Because he wants my attention, so okay, here it goes. Ontologistics. Yeah, I love that. I just love all the little fancy talk. Anyway, so the argument basically is, okay, somehow I've avoided or somehow missed all the great arguments about objective morality, blah, blah, blah. So he's linked to a video that I haven't watched. And I'm not going to watch it on purpose until I make this video. In spite of what he requests in the text. The text is always different than the videos, of course. Look, it's not that complicated, okay? An ontology starts with some kind of premise. That's what it starts with. Water is wet. So, yeah, conveniently, the word wet was invented to describe what rain. You could even say rain is wet. Yeah, because rain is always wet. And there you go. You're off to the race. And so if the beginning premise was rain was bad, then you have a different starting point. But I guess what I'm basically going to argue, and that is the argument you can't do much with. Look, value is not material. It's not a description of a material reality. So, yeah, you're not going to be able to sit there and apply the same rules you apply to material reality to a value. So you start, but you're still starting with a premise. I mean, the premise for an argument about reality is that this isn't virtual reality. You're kind of dependent on this kind of a premise, that we're not part of some God delusion, an actual delusion in a God's head. You know, we have to eliminate all the preposterous scenarios. So you basically have to first have the starting premise be, please eliminate all the preposterous, idiotic scenarios, and let's accept this material reality is as it appears to all of us in shared conscious absorption. And likewise, I would say, in shared absorption, we understand that sentience has a qualitative aspect. You can feel comfortable and you can feel uncomfortable as the two simplest ways to describe what you can feel. And if you feel uncomfortable, it is in and of itself, beyond any circumstantial purpose, negative, in that it is more better, to feel better. There are better states of feeling, and it is better to be in one of those better states of feeling. That's basically the water is wet foundation. That value is generated by sentient beings in conscious states experiencing qualitative states of feeling. There. Go ahead now. Defeat that. That's the premise of my value equation. Anyway, I believe a proper and hopefully prepared, well, whatever, I don't do prepared, you want to pay me to do prepared, then fine. But yeah, I have a real life I gotta live. And I got more interest than your interests. I believe a proper and hopefully prepared response to this video by Gary is required to once and for all end the redundant debate on ethics. Yeah, well, like I said, at any point you could end my debate on ethics by somehow humiliating one of my arguments, which you have not done. All you've done is attack my character, you little weasel son of a bitch. Even if Ontologistics may not respond. Oh, he's an actual guy with a name, I guess. Although I would direct him to do it. Well, there you're making an ought out of a not in his. I or other people who believe this video to be accurate about ethics could then easily pick apart Gary's points one by one if need be. Well, okay, let's give you some nose to pick.
Following the death of faith in God, non-believers have become confused over the issue of ethics and morality.
It's one of these charming people.
I shall seek to end their confusion, thereby offering an honest answer to the view on ethics to which a liberated atheist thinker would arrive.
This is a serious guy, apparently. This is how people make serious videos. I am God, and you will listen to me. I can do that too. I'm really cool. There's no doubt about it. So pay attention to everything I say, because I'm really cool.
It is not humanism, but a qualified form of nihilism. Neo-nihilism.
What does this have to do with me? I don't think I'm hearing the part about me yet. The pause is intended to what? Make people say, well, don't I have to get to the store? Don't I have something better to do than watch a pipe smolder?
I shall look at confused atheist responses. That is, evolutionary psychology, humanism, utilitarianism, contractarianism.
And what will you say to all those things? That all those things are illegitimate, and you must obey the Goddyism.
Cultural relativism, and find them lacking.
Yeah, well, whatever. I find this a waste of my fucking time so far. So there, you're lacking. Yeah.
To begin with, it is essential to understand the difference between descriptive and prescriptive ethics.
No, it isn't, really. I mean, really, first you describe the fucking disease, and then you... Well, first you describe the disease, and then you prescribe the cure. There. How is that too complicated? I'll do some pause. I need some eerie music. There. Do you have an answer yet? I don't think you'll ever find an answer to that one.
A dichotomy, conflation of which has been the cause of most of the confusion regarding ethics.
No, what's causing confusion is you're talking and playing music at the same time, fucknut. And that only really works is if your voice is a lot louder than the music. Not when the music's louder than your voice. Retard.
Descriptive ethics, then, describes the behavior of humans and other species amongst themselves. We can say, describe the compassion and altruism amongst mankind.
Whatever that is, you have to first demonstrate that those things actually exist. And that they actually have something called integrity as sources of information. I would argue that both our compassion and the non-existent notion of altruism are both bullshit. Okay? Yeah, that's right. Our compassion is based on subjective experience because we're not talking about objective value. Because everybody's just saying, I like the Jets. And the other guy's saying, I like the Giants. And the other guy's saying, I like to eat marshmallows. And it's just not anything you can make any fucking sense out of.
But describing behavior does not logically entail that one prescribes or advocates that behavior.
Well, again, there's just no point. We're not talking about the behavior. We're talking about the origin of value. First, you have to describe what has value. Then you just put the value in for the variables that you can know. Some variables you can't know absolutely, so you have to go based on a probability. What's the probable outcome of the behavior? And it's really not that complicated again. But some questions are impossible to answer, like, should we build more nuclear power plants? Because it's a risk number. I mean, they're impossible to answer unless you're going to say something like, well, we should fault on the side of safety. Well, that would be a rational statement, logical, it seems reasonable, but there could be a possible scenario where that fails, unfortunately, where you had an opportunity to solve a problem, you didn't solve it because you were fail-safing, and now you're fucked. And that's the possibility. So the point is that we can't, some of these questions we can't know for sure, and some of them we can know for sure. Let's just say we can know them with different levels of certainty. It can be beyond a reasonable doubt, and it could be double beyond a reasonable doubt, and triple beyond a reasonable doubt.
Prescriptive ethics, then, prescribes values that others ought to have. It prescribes behavior. One ought not to do this or that, for example.
Yeah. So you're going to get to the point soon? Thank you.
For Christians, Muslims and the like, prescriptions are given by God in Exodus 20, Matthew 5, 7, etc., etc. Now, as a great...
Yeah, right, a God that has not any proven credentials, so it's an absolute statement from perhaps an absolute lunatic. So what the hell good is that shit? Oh, yeah, that's right, absolutely no good.
Atheist philosopher David Hume made clear, it is logically impossible to derive prescriptive ethics from descriptive ethics.
Yeah, I'm sorry, if the description is of the thing's value, okay, the ought is automatic. Once you've defined something as bad, there's an automatic ought. As soon as you say the word destructive, unproductive, inefficient, as soon as something is qualified as that, there's an ought saying, do better.
It is logically impossible to derive an ought prescription from an is description, a value.
No, suffering is sucky. Yeah, things ought not to suffer unnecessary, sucky suffering. Yeah. I think I read that in Green Eggs and Ham. Yeah, I think it says there. It says right in Green Eggs and Ham, something like that.
On fact. For example, it may be a fact that we have evolved compassion to aid our survival. But from this fact, it is impossible to derive the value that one ought to be compassionate.
Well, it's just kind of stupid. You're not starting from the foundation, so yeah, you're going to get it wrong. If you don't start with the periodic table, then you're not going to understand physics or chemistry. You know, you have to start at the beginning. You can't start at some strangulated notion out here somewhere. Well, biologically, no, who cares? We know what compassion is. Compassion is a force of manipulation for mammalian organisms. It makes them fuck things, and it makes them hug things, and frankly, it makes them kill other things. So, why the hell would I make oughts out of that? Why would I make oughts out of that dogma? Compassion is dogma.
Such a transgression of logic is as invalid as deriving the value that one ought to be aggressive from the fact that we have evolved aggression.
Well, again, this is just stupid. Just point out something more obvious, okay? That penetrating vaginas that are unwilling to be penetrated are undesirous of penetration has a high probability of causing harm to the possessor of the vagina. Now, the ought is quite obvious that there's no probability of productive outcome in any long-term equation. So if there's no necessity to perpetrate the act, no justifying accomplishment, the act ought not to be performed.
Morality, then, is not based on reason, but on sentiment.
No, it's based on circumstance, retard, just like I described, okay? It's always a circumstance, and in some circumstances, it's black and white simple, all right? There's just no way you come up with some rational reason why I should take this and poke it into my eye or anybody else's eye. There's just no rational cause. Only in some kind of fantastical, made-up, invented scenario do you find any productive purpose in this entering somebody's eyeball. So you just say it ought not to happen. And the prescription just has to be about the act itself. It doesn't even have to be about an individual acting on the act, so you don't even have to worry about their circumstance. All right? You really don't. But again, these prescriptions are always qualified. They're always stated in the context of, we live in this social environment, these things are usually true. Okay, it's only 1 in a million times, is the circumstance where you actually have a justification for committing the behavior, whatever it might be, nut crushing or something. that there be some other way to stop the guy. But yeah, there is one in a million circumstances where it's going to be appropriate to put your foot on somebody else's testicles. But we know it's one in a million circumstances.
Which is both biologically and culturally conditioned. As Hume famously stated, quote, "It is not contrary to reason to prefer the destruction of the whole world to the scratching of my finger."
Yeah, right. So you lunatics, Tranquil, you see some value in preposterous, nonsensical rubbish like that. Yeah, go ahead. Let's all build concentration victims because they're so funny looking. So let's get a whole bunch let's build a zillion of them and put them on Mars. And then we'll watch them eat each other. It'll be fucking funny as hell. Because it doesn't matter. I mean, we all the time laugh at somebody else's misfortune. And we do that in a kind of bizarre, kind of pitiful, psychological way because we find it so bad that we're trying to cover up the badness of it with a little bit of a joke laughter. By your lunatic philosophy, it actually is funny. Think about that, fucker. Music. Did you think about it? Makes you one sick motherfucker.
End quote. It is not contrary to reason. It's just highly unusual.
No, it's highly preposterous. Okay, the whole reason why we've identified the distinction, all right, it just isn't something you can say, but that distinction is not a distinction. No, it is a distinction. That's why we identified it. There's a difference between feeling good and feeling bad. And we know that one is the good end and one is the bad end. Oh, this is horrible.
Following this understanding,
I mean, really, one ought not to waste people's time. Time is money. Time is valuable. Haven't you heard any of that shit?
To those who claim that we have a moral sense within us which tells us what is good from what is evil.
Well, I'm not one of those people. Okay, we have a selfish sense inside of us. It tells us what we can profit from and what everybody else can go to fucking hell. But that's really not ethics. It's not a value conversation. It's just this conversation about the psychology of a motherfucking monkey.
I should reply with the following. It may be a fact that we have the characteristics of compassion, empathy, altruism, etc. But these are universal characteristics, not universal values.
Ugh, whatever. Again, this is irrelevant to a logical conversation. We can judge an animal, for example. We can look at the animal and we can assess whether or not it has the capacity to sense, to feel. And now we will make judgments about the welfare of the animal that have nothing to do with our self-interest and just have to do with the fact that we know that we don't want to be wasting their feelings. We would like to optimize their feeling state. It's just not that complicated. You don't need any compassion or any altruism or any other kind of psychological nonsense of human beings to do the logic.
They are facts, not values. Different cultures value different characteristics.
Again, I mean, this is probably of all these idiotic arguments, this is the idioticiest. That because somebody writes it down on a piece of paper, all values are equal, all cultures are equal. Because they wrote something down on a piece of paper that says, candy canes are fun, or, whatever, climbing trees are fun. And then one guy writes down, eating your own shit is fun. That somehow all three of those statements are equal.
For example, the characteristic of pride was the highest value for Aristotle in his Greeks 2,500 years ago.
Yeah, so this is how you do a conversation, an intelligent 21st century conversation on value, is that you go quote some guy who said something 2,000 years ago. Brilliant. 3,000.
but was one of the lowest vices for medieval Christianity, being one of the 7 deadly sins. So the characteristic of pride is a fact, but it is merely culture, not logic, which decides whether it is of value.
Well, again, I don't even know why we're having a conversation about value in the context of valuing human psychological phenomenon. Most human psychological phenomenon is bullshit. The only thing that really matters is whether you're happy or sad, comfortable or uncomfortable. It doesn't matter what's making you comfortable, what makes you comfortable, how you derive your comfort. The obvious argument would be, let's say we all get hungry. We all need nourishment to satisfy us. One would argue that the optimum human condition is somebody who derives all the joyful pleasure of eating from food that requires the less value-added preparation. So the most economical consumer of food, that human being would win that value contest. Okay, he derived the most satisfaction and pleasure from the simplest and least prepared and least expensive food source. That would be the value equation, not too complicated.
Likewise, Plato considered compassion to be a womanly vice. The Spartans considered aggression to be a virtue. The Vikings considered death.
Oh, who cares? I mean, really, you want to go all down the list? I can go ask a 4-year-old what they think Tinkerbell's opinion would be. What would be the point?
In battle, to be the only way of entering their heaven, Valhalla. Again, characteristics, facts, and values must be separated.
Characteristics, facts, and values must be separated. Well, yeah, characteristics are irrelevant. Values and facts, well, you have to premise the value equation with a fact. I could have sworn I heard something at the door, like a cat. But I was mistaken. So, whatever. Yeah, you need one or two facts to premise the value conversation, where you basically say something simple like, suffering sucks, and you might even go further and even add, I would add something like, that sensation is derived through a zero-sum negative scale of gratification, and that there's nothing else, there's just bad and worse. All right, and so it's better for you to be in a less worse state of conscious being, a less dissatisfied, a less needing, a more tranquil state of mind. That's the goal, is to become more tranquil. But there isn't any true positive. Positive movement is just digging yourself out, metaphorically, of the cellar.
With this understanding, let us look at some atheist responses to the question of our values. To begin with evolutionary psychology. We can explain characteristics through evolution, but we cannot explain which characteristics we ought to value from evolution. Evolution describes the facts.
Oh, this would have been just some. I was just seeing if the text, if he might just put all this crap, his speech, in the text, and then I could just read this nonsense instead of being annoyed like this. I mean, I really wish people, if you're not going to make a proper video, I mean, fuck it, just put your stupid, and you're going to have a script, well, put your script in the fucking description, just save everybody some time, point arrow to the damn description. Fucking bullshit.
But it cannot prescribe values. It cannot bridge the is-ought gap. We have evolved both aggression and compassion. Evolution...
Irrelevant. Again, you do not look at human psychology to define value. All right? It's not there. That psychology is developed to be the tool, the instrument for one single organism. It is not developed to be a rational, objective source of understanding. The only part of the human body, our brain, that has any hope of doing it correctly is the intelligent part, because that part has been filtered from Aristotle on, doing this logic thing, okay? First describing reality, and now prescribing onto reality once it has been described.
Not tell us which we should value the more. Likewise, humanism claims there are certain human characteristics which aid our survival and thus are universal values, or human...
Well, again, so more nonsense. Well, survival is not intrinsically part of the logical equation. Survival, as we know, isn't even accomplished. No organism survives their death. None. Zero. So the word is, in a sense, a huge, gigantic oxymoron pile of crap. It has absolutely no fucking useful meaning. You do not survive. All right? You can live longer and you can live shorter periods of time, but what's the fucking difference? The period just becomes some sort of relative nonsense. So you can make them long or short, it doesn't really matter. All that will change is how many iterations of a living thing you have. But the number of living things on Earth right now could be exactly the same, and you could cut everybody's lifespan in half. And you'd have exactly the same amount of life on Earth, and the same amount of everything, and all you're changing is how many times you transition from child to adult.
Right. However, this again derives values from facts. Moreover, other facts such as anger, aggression, and manipulation have also aided and still aid our survival. Jeremy.
Well, again, so you presume that these people arguing for objective morality or ethics or a value equation are all valuing, there's some sort of intrinsic or some sort of notion that they all say survival's the value. I mean, but again, that's the premise, isn't it? Isn't that a premise? So you actually saying the word survival has justified the premise. You're basically conceding they have a premise, and now you're taking the premise away to make your argument? No, you've accepted the premise exists, now you're stuck with it. I think it's all bullshit because the premise is bullshit, so argue their premise. But don't argue the logic built on the premise. Obviously, if they value survival, there will be an implication of a ton of oughts that'll grow out of that.
Nathan, a utilitarian, also criticizes the notion of human rights, or natural rights, saying there is no way of proving them to be true, and rights can only exist within a legal framework.
Well, again, this is more semantics, I guess. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the word rights. I'm a big fan of responsibility. So I would argue that once all responsibilities have been fulfilled, then everything else is yours. Go ahead, call it your right. Okay, so once you've done your job, once you've accomplished what you owe, once you've accomplished whatever your indebtedness to the other beasties is, and some of those indebtedness are one you're born with, yeah, then the rest is yours to play with as you choose.
Outside of countries, such notions are absurd. However...
Well, again, and so Tranquil, you think this is the kind of argument that should mean something to somebody? That because somebody else is doing it wrong, that means nobody can do it right? I mean, this is an absurdly stupid argument.
Bentham's philosophy, utilitarianism, also suffers from logical inconsistency. Utilitarianism derives the value of the utility principle, increase everyone's pleasure, decrease their pain, from the fact that we seek pleasure and avoid pain, hedonism.
Yeah, well, whatever. That's not my argument, but I mean it's close to my argument. But obviously, yeah, I don't put any value on the pleasure thing. Okay, the pleasure thing is what you get when you're eliminating the negative thing. So if you get rid of the uncomfortable states of being, you will automatically derive whatever you want to call pleasure. That will be the end result. That's what that's what produces pleasure, is getting rid of the negative state. Get rid of the negative state, you have a positive state. It just happens to work out that way. But But again, it's not something because our psychology says so. It's because it's a logical deduction based on the circumstantial evidence and eyewitness testimony. I personally experienced sensation. I know the sensation is. I've established it's a negative. Yeah, unless you have one hell of an argument to tell me that somehow when I feel bad, I'm not really feeling bad, you have nowhere to start from here. You first got to destroy my perception based on my personal experience. You've got to explain how I'm deluded in thinking that it sucks to have my nuts crushed. That somehow that's just a dumb notion in my head. Well, good luck proving that fucker.
But even if this were a fact, it would not entail that we ought to follow it. One may seek pain and avoid pleasure without contradiction.
No, I'm sorry. So now you're going to bring up deviant psychology that isn't really not going to suffer. All right? They're just saying that to get out of their hole, they're so deep in the hole, they actually have to go down further to start going up. All right? Nobody would want to be a sadomasochist. They wouldn't say, oh, if I have a choice between these two states of being, oh yeah, I want to be the guy who has to fucking cut his nuts off to get off. No, that would really suck. I don't think I want to be that fucking lunatic. Yeah. So they're not winning. They're not turning pain into pleasure. They're turning pain into a way of ameliorating a bigger pain. They're in so much pain that they have to use pain to fight the pain. It's like fighting fire with fire. You've heard of that? Yeah, it's like they have to blow up the oil well to blow out the fire. So they have to be more violent to themselves to destroy the violence that already owns them. So there's nothing positive in that state of being, so that quite obviously can't be used as an example of a contradiction to the basic normative statement that feeling good is good and feeling bad sucks.
Facts do not lead to values.
Well, you didn't prove that. So, Tranquil, this is what you call a serious proof? I'm supposed to be just fucking overwhelmed by that babble? That was I was supposed to sit there and write up some kind of disciplined treatise on the subject, and this was to this shit.
Contractarianism states that values are derived from certain characteristics, such as altruism, as they help society achieve peace and stability.
Yeah, well, again, I'm not going to argue contractarianism. I mean, come on. That's kind of a higher level value system where now you're talking about, well, what kind of maze should the rats be in? What's the optimum maze to get the most out of this ratism? And that would have to be based on some sort of notion that there's a point in building the roller coaster in the first place, right? I mean, you have to have some reason to think there's some purpose to be accomplished. And so, yeah, we're going to build roller coasters. Now we're just going to talk about what the best kind is to build with the amount of money we have. We obviously won't have enough money to do it right. We're only going to have enough resources to build some kind of slot machine. And so we're going to decide, well, whose kids do they throw off and where do they throw them off and what kind of brick wall do they throw them at. And we'll decide who will be the winners and the losers and blah, 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 and make all these equations. And my argument to that is, no, don't build the maze until you got enough money to do it right. If you're not going to build a proper nest, you don't lay no fucking eggs. That equation to me is wiped out really quick. There's absolutely no rational reason to perpetuate the nonsense. None whatsoever. And if you're going to perpetuate on an insufficient budget, you're a fucking asshole. There. Done.
However, this assumes what it seeks to prove. It begs the question, as it values peace and stability as a condition from which values are derived.
No, it's just making the general statement that generally speaking, if you can pay 10 cents for, a shield, it's worth it. That's all it's saying. If you can do something simple like fluorinate the water, and prevent a million cavities, well, yeah, it's probably the right thing to do.
Many cultures have valued war and battle. Both cultural valuations are subjective, not objective. What has hitherto been said, however, in no way leads to cultural relativism. Cultural relativists state that one ought not criticize other cultures.
Whatever. I know you're going to talk about the stupidest stuff. One ought not to call somebody bad names. They ought not to say, Tranquil, you're a little motherfucking, droopy-drawered asshole. Yeah, okay, it's true. I ought not to do that. All right? There's really no good reason. There's probably no productive accomplishment in it. But, yeah, I don't care. I'm a monkey, and I'm now and then going to be a fucking monkey, and I'm going to go and stick some duty on a stick now and then, and I'm going to poke motherfuckers with it. Because that's what monkeys do. So, fuck you. But this is stupid. This is inconsequential nonsense, Mr. Pipe Man. Come on, Mr. Pipe Man, telling me a piping story. Do. I wish, don't you wish this was like reggae or something?
That this itself is a value, a prescription, an ought. That itself is relative to their culture.
Oh, whatever. It's relative to culture is just stupid. We know that some cultures are incredibly dogmatic and stupid. It's like the intelligent guy wrote down a bunch of smart stuff in a book, and then he dropped dead of a heart attack, and the book fell in the mud when he was dropping dead. And now they read the book all the fuck wrong. They tried to rewrite it back, like that Star Trek episode where like they had the Constitution and they were reading it all fucking wrong. Yeah, and so fucking it all up. Yeah, it's that kind of scenario. So there's no reason to make the argument from culture, from cultural diversity. All right, some cultures are completely fucktarded because they're not even reading their good book the right way.
Thus, not an objective moral imperative either. Rather, if we want to be rational, we must criticize other cultures based on our subjective preferences.
Well, whatever. Again, it's a value equation. So if you've defined what is valuable, and that is that it's not a good idea to eat other people's brains when they're still alive because it causes them pain, and you're just making some simple statement like that, and now you have an ought. People just ought not to do it because it causes pain, blah, blah, blah. Not complicated. So this is just stupid. The same value equation applies to all cultures. It applies to all. The value equation is based on the idea of sentience. It is basically saying that no matter where a sentient is in the universe, something that can feel the sensation of suffering, the sensation of a negative state of being, if it can exist, no matter where it exists in the universe, it creates value. Its existence creates value in the universe. It gives a thing a welfare. It gives it a state of being that is positive and negative, and therefore that creates value. That's the energy in the value dimension, is the creation of a sentience. The experiential consciousness is what runs the value dimension. There's nothing else in it. Everything else in the universe is shit. The only thing that matters is the feeling stuff.
And be conscious of the fact. This is realpolitik. This is honesty. What has been said neither leads to classical nihilism, as we understand that it is a fact that we value things, whatever they may be. Even perception itself is valuation. We perceive...
Whatever. Moment of secularization. Well, whatever that is. Look, this whole idea that you can somehow turn it all into subjective mush and that's going to work is just bullshit. Because individuals are not efficient consumers by nature. So there's just no point in that. We're only efficient consumers by education, by knowledge, by understanding.
What is of value to us? Nihilism se is impossible due to human nature. But different things are valuable to different people and different creatures. Therefore,
again, this is irrelevant. It's not what your body has addicted you to. I could be addicted to something horrible. And I could know from intelligence, from knowledge gathering, that acting on that addiction would be just disgusting. I mean, you could pick all kinds of things. People use the sexual examples. There's probably other addictions you could have. I could be addicted to, you know, I don't know, eating the pupils of great apes or something, or some other stupid thing. And you know, or I could love to watch, you know, sentient beings killing each other brutally. Or I could have some other way that I derive my comfort that is just preposterously idiotic.
Is known as neo-nihilism. Objective morality is an illusion, and like religion, is a means to control others.
Well, whatever. Yeah, so you want to live under what kind of control? Logical control or the control of baboon instincts? It's just idiotic to say that we have no evidence that human beings acquire a sense, a personal value equation through conditioning, a psychological value equation, a Freudian value equation that has any relevance to reality. It is always ego-driven, egocentric, and so that's just saying give the world to Adolf Hitler, give the world to bigotry, racism, every negative ism there is. It would just be stupid. And to say that it's somehow control freaky, that you would establish some basic parameters within which you're going to let the rats run for a tidier game, because it's good to be tidy in terms of how much sentient suffering you spill. Not too hard to figure out, right? Don't spill the sentient suffering. I guess it's all done. So Tranquil Guy, in all honesty, you're going to tell me that this video, like if I was to play this video next to, well, let's play it just for the fun of it, a little bit of it, just to rub it in a little bit. Just a little bit, you know. So this piece of absolute crap of a video, this absolute piece of crap of a video, I'm waiting for it to load. Yeah, I don't know. Getting out of YouTube, I don't know which one's taking longer, getting out of YouTube or getting my page to work. Anyway, so we're now at the Do Not God website. And we got to see this little video called Unintelligent Design. He has some other ones over there, too. You know, this Greg Chow guy. You know.
Unintelligent design is going to create
yeah.
waste and sloppiness. There's going to be paint on the walls, food on the floor, however you want to metaphor it, but the retard ain't going to do it right. And there's going to be a mess made. And that's the dilemma of the true atheist, is accepting the fact that he's part of a big waste engine. An engine that has 99 times more friction than function. Crude forces in control of precious commodities.
yeah. So your little crap video, you're saying challenges that one? What, you know? And this is only 3 minutes and 41 seconds. So I mean, if you think I'm just such an easy target and I'm doing all this fluffy marshmallow philosophy on the fucking internet, why don't you take a premise in that video? Why don't you take an argument made in that video and show how it's all just crap? And then you could also demonstrate how that doesn't have 500 times more style than your fucking pipe video. I mean, come on, it kicks ass on style points alone. Oh, so you lose. The music's better, the imagery is more connected to the subject matter, it just in every way kicks fucking ass. These videos aren't too bad either. I must do an update video. I mean, this is great. This layer video is pretty funny to Nick. This video is really, I think it's a good video, but I hope Nick doesn't take it the wrong way, but he might. But these are just great videos on arguing this whole idea of this nihilistic philosophy, this idea that suffering isn't a real thing, it doesn't matter, just forget about it, blah, 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 blah. And it's not a real thing, unfortunately. I mean, it would be really great if suffering was a real thing and you could just put in a petri dish and say, ooh, look at the suffering in the petri dish, look at it grow, ooh, ooh. That'd be really super if you could do that, but we can't do that, so we have to argue about it. Suffering over, you know what I mean? In there, like that suffering thing, so we have to, like, indirectly describe, it. We can't just, show it to anybody. Maybe if I dress up as suffering, maybe a suffering costume. Yeah, that's an idea. I'll make a suffering costume. But anyway, I mean, the artists have done that in images, that, like, whatever it is, that loopy face image thing, and all those different little things. Yeah. So I mean, it's been done. All right, enough of a video. I guess I'll just post this on the Inmendham channel since I'm here. What the hell? Okay, till next time and such.